couple elections ago, there was a presidential candidate who decried this kind of politics and condemned these kind of tactics, and I admired him for it. He said, "I will not take the low road to the highest office in the land." Those words were spoken 8 years ago by my opponent, John McCain. But the high road didn't lead him to the White House then, so this time he decided to take a different route.
Joyce Purnick, do you agree with Senator Obama that McCain has taken the low road?
Well, I think that's the nature of politics very often in this country, and yes, I think he has. What strikes me less than the characterization of the low road is that McCain has seemed to pull out one attack after another, and he seems to be veering wildly. And to call Obama a socialist because he wants to reduce taxes on the middle class and raise them slightly on the very wealthy. I mean, this is a country where, as Obama himself pointed out, levied an income tax on the country, and it happened to be Teddy Roosevelt who did it. So, I mean, how do you call the guy a socialist? But that's one of many, 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 I don't want to call them necessarily smears, but kind of nasty allegations he's made. He has not defined himself. He has defined himself through his negative attacks on Obama, but he seems to stand for something different every day, and I don't think that plays well.
Yeah, I think Joyce is right. I don't know if he's taken the low road, but he's been veering all over the road. He needed to have a single message in the final weeks of the campaign during the economic collapse in September, and we didn't know what he was doing. Is he suspending his campaign? Is he debating? What is going on? Is he going to speak to the president at the White House? Is he going to sit there silently? We saw all of those things, and it was a really bad several weeks from McCain, and he never recovered from.
Last comment on the presidential race, then we're going to Fred to talk about the state budget situation.
Frankly, I see this as Obama. I could be completely wrong about this. I see this as Obama firing a shot across the bow, letting people know that this stream of attacks are not going to go unanswered, and they will not be forgotten. And so if there's anybody else out there that wants to jump out there and call him a Marxist, or bring up heirs for the billionth time, or start talking about Jeremiah Wright all over again, that he, in the closing hours of this campaign, who could very well be the president of the United States, doesn't really want this to happen, and it's not going to be forgotten. And I think that could make some Republicans maybe back down.
Dominick, just quickly, another opinion. I don't think John McCain took the low road any more than Barack Obama did. I think on that socialist stuff that Joyce was referring to is an appropriate description, although I don't agree with it, but it's certainly appropriate to describe someone who talks about redistributing the wealth, which is a phrase that Obama used. Well, I don't think it's not the low road. I mean, it's a legitimate question to raise.
So Fred,
I mean, it's a fundamental change of what the American government is about.
Fred, when Governor Patterson went down to D.C. this week to point out that we send $86 billion more each year to Washington than we get back, was he being a socialist?
Right.
I mean, was he being a redistributionist?
Errol, that's apples and oranges. The state does not send that money down there. Individual taxpayers in New York do, because we have a disproportionate number of wealthy people in New York.
Is it a socialist scheme that we send more than we get back as a state?
No, wait a minute. The governor was talking about New York getting federal aid for the state. Barack Obama appeared to be talking about redistributing wealth to individual citizens. There's a fundamental difference there.
That's
and I
what
would say one sounds
is all about in a fair country. That's what they're doing all over the world. They call social democrats. I mean, to throw the word socialist around is a very American thing. Anyway.
No, it's a very European view. You're right, Joyce, but we have not had a history of that in the United States.
What's the income tax, Fred?
What's the mortgage interest deduction?
The income tax is not used to redistribute wealth. It's people are taxed on the basis of ability to pay, but the money goes to the state governments or local governments, not to individual citizens as a redistribution.
That's the fundamental difference. He's talking about. Anyway.
Well, I don't know exactly what he's talking about. He said share the wealth in a way that suggested social democracy, the European style, which is socialism. Well, look, this is a political campaign. Barack Obama has done that repeatedly to McCain, suggesting things about he and Sarah Palin that arguably were low-road attacks as well. That's all.
Okay, well, we've gone over in terms of the time on the presidential race. We only have about 45 seconds, Fred. I go right back up to you in Albany here. Let's talk about the budget. We're going to have to put the state Senate to the side, whether or not the Democrats will get those 2 seats that they need to get control. Let's talk about the budget situation. The governor gave us some very dark, gloomy numbers in terms of the deficit. I believe $12 billion for the upcoming budget. How in the world does one, and how does one find $12 billion to cut in the budget?
How about cutting it back to where it was last year? I mean, he's already raising it, right?
It's actually $14 billion. He's saying you have to cut $2 billion this year, 12.5 next year, so it's 14.5. Bottom line answer, Dominic, is nobody knows yet. People are scratching their heads here. People are wondering if the governor is even up to the task. No governor in modern times has ever dealt with a percentage of deficit like this that's looming ahead. There's only 3 weeks to go to this, less than that, to a special session when the governor wants to cut $2 billion. We're waiting to hear his plan. He's described it well, but he's yet to say what he proposes to do about it.
Fred, I'm out of time, but you've been up there for a while. Have you ever seen anything like this before?
No, I think the governor is right in describing this as the worst financial crisis to face the state since the Great Depression. It's unprecedented.
Well, we thank the four of you for joining us tonight. It is now time for a break. I will be back with a preview of Monday's program and a Halloween treat. Stay with us.